What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a new video here today on the channel. This is a video I wanted to bring you guys for about a week now, but it's been hard just coming up with the video, really, because it's been such a tough stretch for the Wolfpack and really everything between football, basketball, and on and off the field things that just haven't been going the Wolfpack's way, but we'll dive right into it and cover it like we always do. And I guess just to get it out of the way, we'll start off with NC State's final game of the season for football against Kentucky in the Gator Bowl, a 23-21 loss. A very frustrating game to watch, really from start to finish. State had multiple chances in this game. They got off to a rough start in the first half, went scoreless in the first half. It was frustrating because I figured they would have come out and have a high-scoring game, kind of building off all the other bowl games we've seen, such high-scoring games. But, of course, NC State does the exact opposite of what I predict and what I think is going to happen. They come out, miss 2 field goals, turn the ball over multiple times, and let Kentucky really drain the clock with their run game. State was without a lot of help on defense. I figured that Lee McNeil would opt out of this game due to joining the NFL draft, which he did. Drake Thomas sat out with an injury, and Peyton Wilson, who had been battling injuries all season, he sat out. I believe he's had surgery as well on his shoulder, I believe. He's had trouble with both shoulders, and he's just been banged up all season long playing through it. He's a warrior, and we'll talk about him a little bit later as well. And some good news. We've had such a bad stretch here for Wolfpack Athletics, but some good news for Peyton Wilson we'll touch on in a minute. State's offense kind of got going in the second half. Bam Knight, you see there, a touchdown run. He got going. He was the leading rusher, just 52 yards. He only had 12 carries, but Hockman, he had one of those games where he just wanted to turn the ball over multiple times and made some really bad throws. There we had a chance to go down the field and take the lead, but he was picked off, and then ultimately ended the game. They were able to score another. Kentucky was able to score another touchdown. We didn't respond, but it was just too little, too late. So Kentucky went on to win this game 23-21. State, although it was I would say a very successful season due to all the circumstances, playing an all-conference schedule. Even the only non-conference game was against a top 25 opponent, undefeated Liberty at the time. We won that game. All in all, a successful season. We squandered some opportunities against some really good teams like Kentucky and Miami, but you got to be happy with that way we played. And I'm looking forward to next season. We have a bright future ahead. As I mentioned, there actually was some good news for the Pack in this offseason that Peyton Wilson decided he would return to NC State for another season next year. So he'll be back, the leader of our defense in that middle linebacker position. Led the team, led the ACC in tackles, despite not playing in the bowl game. Still led the ACC in tackles with 108 total tackles. So that's a huge pickup for us to have him back next year. I know he'll make a huge impact and hopefully continue to build up his draft stock. So having him back, along with also Daniel Joseph, there was a grad transfer last year from Penn State. He'll return to State next year. To return to NC State, not Penn State. He'll return to NC State. Our leading sack getter last year, 6.5 sacks on defense. He also played injured a lot. So that's another big-time pickup for our defense. That's young in the secondary, experienced up front, and hopefully that'll translate to a lot of success next year. And these big-time returning starters aren't just on the defensive side. Also on offense, our leading receiver from this past year, Emeka Emezi, will return for another year of eligibility granted by the NCAA this year. He'll be back to lead this receiving core of really some really young, talented players like Porter Brooks, incoming freshman Micah Crowell. He's another 4-star guy. Devin Carter. Thayer Thomas, another veteran that will be back next year as well. So exciting things for the receiving core. And they also have their leader, Devin Leary, back under center. As he returns from his injury, he'll be healthy and ready to go. NC State will return their quarterback, their top 3 running backs, and the majority of their receiving core will be back next year. So it's really exciting times for Tim Beck and this offense for the Pack. One guy we know that will not be returning in a Wolfpack uniform next year will be quarterback Bailey Hockman. Hockman transferred from FSU a few years ago and kind of never really found his place at NC State. He was up and down, really is all you can say. One game he'd play great. Next game, you'd scratch your head and wonder what in the world is he doing, kind of like in the bowl game against Kentucky. But if it's one thing for sure, he gave it his all. We appreciate him for stepping in this year. It definitely wasn't tough. New offensive coordinator, going from starter back to the starter. It probably took a toll on him, but he gave it his all. We appreciate everything he done for us this year, and I know he'll have continued success as he has committed to Middle Tennessee State University to finish up his career. So we wish him nothing but the best and thank him for his time at NC State. And I'm excited for him to see what he's going to do there. I know he'll have great success and appreciate everything he's done for us. And this is probably my favorite play of the year, was that pass from Thayer Thomas to Hockman, and then he ran it in. this great blocking in front, and this was a great play. I wish we would have won this game because Hockman played fantastic in this game. He did make a late turnover, which we've seen him do multiple times, but it was up and down for him, pretty much the story of his career at NC State, but wish him the best going forward. Recently, State also picked up a transfer from Marshall, Derek Pitts, a safety, another DB to add to that secondary, just kind of get some depth back there. So a nice pickup, 42 tackles this past season. So we'll see how he does with the Wolfpack. I guess just pretty much adding depth to that secondary, which is much needed for NC State. So a nice pickup. Now we switch over to basketball, which has been a very, very tough subject to speak on for the Pack this past 2 weeks or so. Well, in my last video, we talked about State coming off a win against Boston College after coming off a win against North Carolina, being 2-0 in ACC play, and things went downhill fast. First, they had the huge game against Clemson at Clemson, where they led the majority of the game, had an outstanding first half. They played great in the first half, come out second half, had their lead slip away, and then overtime, mistakes after mistake after mistake in OT, bad passes, turnovers, and led to another tough loss. And we've seen it too many times. And then we see too many times where a game like that leads to it overlaps over to the next game against a very beatable Miami team without their two best players. State struggles the whole game and can never find a rhythm on offense that we've seen too many times too often under Coach Keatts. And it ends up being a loss to at the time winless in conference play Miami team. So then that game leads over to the FSU game. This is probably the toughest team we've played all year, and it showed FSU a complete basketball team on offense and defense as well. And this game was without Manny Bates, but still getting blown out by 32 points on the road to a team that shoots 71% from the field. Defense, I don't know if it was much of defense or if it was just Florida State was on. What do you do when they're shooting the ball like that? They were pretty much unstoppable that night, so I don't put too much on Coach Keatts. His defense I don't know if anybody could have stopped Florida State that night, and Coach Keatts said he didn't even think the Lakers could beat Florida State that night. But we've seen it too many times too often on offense under Coach Keatts, where they rely too heavily on that ball screen action, and Coach Keatts doesn't like to let his guards play, but sometimes he lets them play too much, I believe, and we get caught up in too many pick and rolls, and our offense becomes predictable. And as much as I was not a fan of Coach Godfrey, especially on defense, I don't think they ever had a practice where they focused on defense under Coach Godfrey. But he did manage to run multiple offensive sets through the eye post, backdoor cuts, and back screens, pin down screens for guys like Scott Wood to get open for three. We've seen offensive sets under Coach Godfrey. I don't know if I've seen one single offensive set over the past 2 or 3 years under Coach Keatts other than a high ball screen. And don't get me wrong, we shouldn't fully go away from ball screens. They're definitely a big part of our offense, obviously, and can work really well with our guards. But we don't really have that one true point guard who can go get his bucket off a ball screen. I mean, Devin Daniels is really a two-guard playing the one at a lot of times, and our guards are young guards. Shaquille Moore and Cam Hayes are true freshmen running the point guard at times. And Thomas Allen really is an off-the-ball shooter. I don't really see him running ball screens that often. And in the Florida State game, and Scott Wood, who was live tweeting the game, you could see after every media timeout, he was frustrated with the high ball screen too. And he understands that we can't win consistently against good teams by running just high ball screen pick and rolls every single time down the court. We're going to have to run sets on offense. And he knows under Coach Godfrey they didn't run sets. They may not have practiced a lick of defense or known how to play defense at all, especially under this last year there with Dennis Smith Jr. I don't think they played defense at all that season. It's one thing Godfrey could do is coach offense, and Coach Keatts is definitely a much improved defensive coach, but I don't know if he really has the tools for offense yet. We've seen him with some great players like Al Freeman in his first year who could create their own shot and sort of bail NC out at times. Markel Johnson was a guy who was streaky. He could get hot and bail us out at times, or he could shoot us out of games. It kind of just puts a lot of stress on two freshman guards and the other guy who's not a true point guard. So just moving the ball around and running sets on offense can make guys get a more flow into the offense. But it's Coach Keatts is what he does. He lets his guards play and runs high ball screens, and that is what he is going to do. So maybe they'll make adjustments and make things work. But this Clemson game, I believe, and especially in overtime, they got two ball centered around Devin Daniels, and he made some tough decisions with the basketball, had a couple of horrible turnovers, and it was the guards for Clemson who made plays down the stretch, knocking down shots to get it to overtime and then to cap it off. That was a great drive right there with the left-handed finish. I don't know where the foul was on that play, but Got an and this shot right here by PJ Hall. I don't think he makes it but one time out of every 10 shots. And of course, that one time will be in a close overtime game against State. But it was just a fitting end to this sloppy game, a sloppy overtime period. And it makes me think this loss, not an excuse, shouldn't not be used as an excuse at all, but it carried over to those past two losses against Florida State and Miami. State's previous two scheduled games were against Georgia Tech and against Virginia, but they both have been postponed to later dates due to COVID issues within the NC State program. But so far, Saturday's game against, of course, rival North Carolina, who has been playing well as of late. State been on the downtrend, 3 straight losses. And we'll see these two teams match up again for the second time this season. Of course, State won the first meeting in Raleigh. State trying to win the season series, sweep the season series against North Carolina for the first time since 2003. So they've never swept the season series with Coach Roy Williams at North Carolina, and they'll look to do that on Saturday if this game is played. And State has a prime opportunity to get another huge win. Carolina also trying to keep their momentum going. So this is a huge game in the ACC for both teams. He's mentioned in a press conference with the media a couple of days ago that Braxton Beverly and Manny Bates were dealing with some nagging injuries. They were both, as he said, pretty banged up, but he's hopeful that they will be ready to go whenever State gets back playing, which is now scheduled to be Saturday. If no changes as of now, I'll update you guys in the comments of this video if anything changes. But as of right now, that game is good to go, and hopefully we'll have Manny and Braxton back. We're going to need them because it's going to be a tough fall game, of course, a rivalry game, and a chance to sweep the season series. So I'm excited to see what happens. I want to wrap up this video on a positive note, and I want to thank two really important guys at NC State. One, a legend, as you see here. If you don't know this man right here, I don't think you've ever watched football or ever kept up with NC State sports, because this man right here, one of the great all-time greats in NC State history in anything, just an all-time NC State alum, but going to be, let me tell you right now, going to be Hall of Famer. Phillip Rivers announced his retirement from the NFL this past week. Just a successful, amazing career. He fell short of just one thing, winning the championship, but other than that, he pretty much did everything. One of the greatest competitors, top 5 in passing yards, completions, 8-time Pro Bowler, and the NC State just flat-out legend. And I thank him for everything he done for NC State's football program. Who knows what Phillip will be up to in retirement. I'm sure he'll be coaching up his young sons, for football in the future. If he ever wants to come coach at NC State, I hope he does it, because we could use him. Who can't use a guy like Phillip Rivers in their program? Just a class act and a great competitor, and I wish him nothing but the best in his retirement. Another guy I wanted to thank real quick is a guy who may not be as legendary or as popular as Phillip Rivers among the Wolfpack fan base, but a guy who needs to be recognized, and that was our wide receiver coach, George McDonald, who has been our wide receiver coach since 2015. He's coached guys like Kellen Harmon, Jacoby Myers, and gotten them ready for the NFL, made them very good and outstanding players and NC State legends. And he's decided to take a job back in his home state of Illinois, at the University of Illinois. Just want to thank him for everything he's done. He's gotten us great big-time prospects. Porter Rooks, who's going to be a great player for us, and Micah Crowell, another big-time target. He's been able to recruit at a high level, and it's obviously been a very, very successful coach at NC State. He's been great at taking our wide receiver core to the next level, and we're definitely grateful for it. And we wish him nothing but the best going forward. I think that's going to do it for this video, Wolfpack Nation. Kind of a somber video. I hate it for it to be like that. It kind of was hard to get this video out due to just kind of a tough couple weeks for NC State on the football field and the basketball court. But a chance Saturday against North Carolina at 2 on ESPN. Make sure you tuned in. Coach Keatts can try to get this team turned around with another huge win against North Carolina. So we'll definitely be tuned in for that. Make sure you are as well. And hopefully they can get that win and keep things going for NC State, get things back on the right track. But if you did enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and as always, thank you for watching, and go Pack.